Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Elizabeth Economy, the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, changed our dialogue on China, where their Michigan graduate school book, The River Runs Black, and has done the rarest thing. She had a triumph in graduate school and then continued forward with book after book after book. She's the only one I know who's read all of James Turijian on G as well. Dr. Economy, thank you so much for joining us. Because of you, I am buried in a nerd book, Joel Wuthnow and Philip Saunders, China's Quest for Military Supremacy. Elizabeth Economy, do you have any idea the makeup and the power of President Xi's China military force?
I mean, if you're reading the book, then you know that Xi Jinping has made radical changes to China's military over the past 13 years since he came into power. He's reorganized it. Certainly, he's reshuffled the top Chinese military. He's modeled it in many cases on the U.S. Joint structure. And he's certainly increased and advanced China's military hardware capabilities. So he's transformed. He's been a transformative military leader. That being said, of course, we've also watched these purges of the senior military leadership, most recently at the fourth plenum. And it's very unclear, sort of the readiness of the Chinese military, certainly at the top, to take any kind of military action moving forward. So just the constant roiling of the senior Chinese military leadership, I think, is a real challenge for Xi Jinping and the party leadership.
Liz, Paul Sweeney brought this up brilliantly this morning. The basic idea is we all have a perspective of Taiwan, and maybe it's Chiang Kai-shek and Mrs. Chiang Kai-shek coming to Washington, and then on to this and Nixon and Kissinger and all that. Is this a fulcrum point where Taiwan is actually under threat?
Look, there's no doubt that Taiwan is under threat. And over the past several years, the rhetoric out of Beijing and the military activity around Taiwan, the air flights, the sort of crossings in the Taiwan Strait over the median line have only increased. And I think what we saw, just over the past few weeks was Prime Minister of Japan, Takaichi, when she said that if China were to take military action against Taiwan, Japan could be forced itself to take some sort of military action, that China came out very hot and said Japan had crossed a red line, and that, it started, the banning, boycotting Japanese seafood, Japanese films, et cetera. And so I think there's no doubt, Xi Jinping has said he wants the Chinese military to be prepared to take action by 2027. That doesn't mean that they're going to launch any kind of military invasion in 2027. He's just put that down as a marker for when he would want the military to be prepared to take Taiwan. So I'll just say I was in mainland China, just came back Saturday. And one of the things that our delegation heard was from a retired senior foreign policy official that China's not prepared to wait 200 years, and that it is prepared to take any form of military action. So I think the heat is it's only getting hotter for Taiwan at this point.
Elizabeth, President Trump and President Xi have been on again, off again, having discussions on trade. What's the perception within China of President Trump, this administration, and maybe the policies as it relates to China?
I think, that there's still a sense within China that President Trump can be very unpredictable. They see some openings with President Trump, and I think the recent phone call that was initiated by Xi Jinping is evidence that, Xi Jinping wanted to send a message about Taiwan, certainly, that Taiwan is part of China and doesn't want the United States to wade into this, Japan, mainland China brouhaha. But I think he was also probing to see whether President Trump might be willing to do something on Taiwan, especially in the wake of this, U.S.-Russia negotiation over Ukraine and that initial peace plan that they put forth. Is there something that President Trump and President Xi could discuss on Taiwan when they meet in April? So I think, the perception in China is that President Trump is a deal maker, that he's willing to put everything on the table and to trade things in and out. And so I think that's what they're looking to assess now.
Do you believe, from the U.S. perspective, that putting things on the table would include Taiwan? Do we have any indication President Trump would consider that?
I think there's always concern when it comes to President Trump's commitment to Taiwan. He's never come out and said that Taiwan is a very valuable partner for the United States. He's been critical of Taiwan on some fronts. I think what we do know is that Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth have been very strong in their support of Taiwan, very strong in their commitment to our Indo-Pacific allies and partners, and to sort of a continued U.S. dominant presence in the Indo-Pacific, in the security space. So, it's unclear. I think we've seen a fracturing to some extent of this administration on the Russia issue. It's not impossible that we'd have a similar fracturing on the Taiwan-China issue.
Elizabeth Economy with us, an extended conversation, of course, with the Hoover Institution and Stanford University. Margie Patel, Chris Whalen coming up. And later we'll be looking at the gambling across America. Dr. Economy, The World According to China, your must read. You say, rewriting the rules of the game. My China 101, also learned at the altar of Elizabeth Economy, is that presidents have a 4-year window, an 8-year window. China has a 20, 30-year x-axis. Rewriting the rules of the game, one of your chapters here. Does President Xi, has he shortened the China exit, or are they playing the long game each and every day?
He's certainly playing the long game, as you say, each and every day. And, they continue to invest in all the resources and capabilities that they need to, win the game over to 2035 to 2049. And you see this in all the targets and timetables that they put forth, for example, and how they're going to achieve global technology dominance. But it also plays out across, a range of areas, whether we're talking about the Arctic or space or deep seabed mining or de-dollarizing the global economy. They're constantly putting, markers out for the future, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out. What do they want to achieve? How are they going to get there? They have a long-term vision and a long-term strategy to achieve that vision. So this is the long game. And, Xi Jinping doesn't see himself exiting anytime soon. So I think we can count on at least another 5-year term beginning in 2027 for Xi Jinping. And after that, I imagine he'll still want to, at least be in the background, guiding the next leaders of China.
So if Xi Jinping seems secure for the foreseeable future, how's the average Chinese person on the ground feel about the world? Are they comfortable with China becoming, I guess, ever more ostracized from the West? Do they want to integrate with the West? What's the feeling on the ground?
I think, look, there are as many different opinions within China as there are, in the United States. And I think there are people who continue to advocate and desire that China be, more open politically, even more open economically these days to the West. There were people who said, Xi Jinping made a mistake when he decided to align with Russia as opposed to the West after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then there are people that are very comfortable with China's more sort of robust posture on the global stage. It's more wolf warrior diplomacy. Right. So there's not one particular view, I think, within China. But I think we see how Xi Jinping, his approach is right. The much more activist and expansionist and ambitious China, and one that's not afraid to take on the West and to assert Chinese interests, Chinese values, and Chinese priorities.
Dr. Economy, in the time we've got left, I've got to go to what you led with, which is this new tension between a new government in Japan and with China. And folks, I'm ignorant of this. Okay, I got it. Can we do some surveillance geography now?
Yeah, I Google Maps like 10 times a
Okinawa,
day.
which is seared in the memory of all Americans, and you come down southwest. There's Miyakayama, Tarama, Ishigaki, Takatomi,
oh boy.
And Paul, help me here. There's a little piece of land. Sweeney nailed this at Lawrenceville years ago. Yonaguni And on a clear day from Yonaguni, sometimes you can see Taiwan.
Can you? Okay.
Japan is that close to China. Liz, what is our biggest ignorance about the modern Chinese-Japanese relationship?
I mean, there continue to be tensions between China and Japan. There are important trading partners, but I think the distance between the closest point of Japan and China is only 70 miles. They have their own territorial conflict over the Diaoyu Senkaku Islands, which Japan administers, but China claims. And China, as assertive as it's been toward Taiwan militarily over the past few years, it's been equally assertive and aggressive militarily toward Japan around this particular, dispute. So I think from the perspective of Japan, they're concerned for Taiwan. Taiwan used to be a colony of Japan. Many people in Taiwan actually speak Japanese, feel close to Japan. So they have their own concerns about Taiwan. They have concerns about, China dominating the, Taiwan Strait and trade routes there that Japan depends on. But they're also concerned about their own security. And if, China takes action against Taiwan, is successful, is Japan next? So I think there are a number of issues sitting back in the minds of the Japanese when it comes to Chinese military action against Taiwan that prompted Prime Minister Takaichi's comment.
Elizabeth, how do you think Japan and our other allies in that part of the world, do they view the commitment from the United States these days? Are they as confident as maybe they have been in past years, or is that wavering?
No, I think, the commitment starts from the top. And, President Biden was very clear on a number of occasions. He said that the United States would come to the defense of Taiwan if China were to, attempt a blockade or a military, invasion. President Trump has not reiterated that commitment. He's gone back to the policy of strategic ambiguity. But I think more than that, there's a sense, that everything was under review at the outset of the Trump administration. Were they going to continue to support the AUKUS, right, the nuclear submarine deal between Australia, the UK, and the US? There was a lot of uncertainty. Ultimately, we did support it, but everything seems to be, up for grabs, with President Trump. Again, Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio have been very firm from the minute that the administration took office that there was going to be continuity in the U.S. commitment to the Indo-Pacific. But with President Trump, there's a much higher degree of uncertainty about our commitment to our allies and partners than, not only Democrats, but Republicans in the past.
Dr. Economy, thank you so much for the generous time this morning. Really, really appreciate it. Elizabeth Economy there, folks, from Hoover and from Stanford as well.